There is something about rain at night that changes everything. The roads are empty, the visibility drops, the sounds you would normally hear are swallowed by the storm. And if something goes wrong out there, you are more alone than you realize. These are 3 true stories from people who found that out in ways they will never forget. I want to be upfront about something before I get into this. I know you are not supposed to pick up hitchhikers. I have known that my entire life. My father told me when I was 16 and learning to drive. My mother told me. Every driver's ed teacher I ever had told me. I know the rule. And on this particular night, I broke it. Because what I saw on the side of that road did not look like a threat. It looked like a person in trouble. This was about 3 years ago. I was driving back from visiting my brother in another state, a trip I had made many times before. The drive was about 6 hours total, and I had left his place later than I intended, which meant I was hitting the long, rural stretch of highway in the dark and in the middle of a serious rainstorm. I had my wipers on full, the road was slick, and visibility was maybe 50 feet ahead of me at best. I had slowed down significantly, and I had my hazards off, because flashing lights in rain at night can confuse other drivers. Just headlights, steady speed, focused on the road. About 2 hours into the drive, in the middle of the emptiest stretch of highway I had seen all night, no exits, no buildings, no lights anywhere except my headlights, I saw someone on the shoulder. A woman, standing at the edge of the road facing oncoming traffic, which is what you do when you need someone to see you. She was soaking wet. She had no umbrella, no rain gear, just a dark jacket that was clearly not waterproof. Her arm was out, thumb up. I slowed down. I told myself I was just going to assess the situation. If she looked dangerous, whatever that means, I would keep going. But she did not look dangerous. She looked cold and scared and completely alone on a stretch of highway where no other car had passed me in at least 20 minutes. I pulled over. She ran to the passenger door and I unlocked it. She got in, breathing hard, shivering. She said thank you about 4 times in the first 10 seconds. I asked if she was okay, and she said she was fine, that her car had broken down and she had been standing there for almost an hour. I asked where her car was. She gestured vaguely behind us and said it was a little ways back. I had not seen a car on the shoulder, not for miles, but it was dark and raining and I had been focused on the road, so I told myself I must have missed it. I asked where she was headed, and she named a town that was about 40 minutes further down the highway in the direction I was already going. I said I could take her there, or at least to the next exit where she could call someone. She said the next exit would be great. We drove. She warmed up slowly. She answered my questions. What she did for work, where she was coming from, basic stuff. Normal conversation. Nothing unusual about her responses. About 20 minutes down the road, I passed a highway sign that told me the next exit was in 2 miles. And below the exit sign was another sign. One of those blue informational signs that lists the services available at the exit. Gas station, fast food, that kind of thing. I looked at it as I passed. And that is when it hit me. The sign told me that this exit was the first exit in 43 miles. I had gotten on this stretch of highway 43 miles ago. That was where the last exit had been. And between that exit and this one, 43 miles of unbroken highway, there was nothing. No side roads, no on-ramps, no access points of any kind. Which meant there was no way for a car to be sitting on the shoulder of this highway unless it had driven here from one of the 2 exits. And the exit she would have come from was 43 miles behind us, in the opposite direction of where she said she was going. I did not say any of this out loud. I took the exit and pulled into the first gas station I saw. I told her this was as far as I could take her and that she could call someone from inside.
She thanked me again, got out, and walked toward the entrance. I sat in the parking lot for a moment. Then I drove around to the other side of the building where I could see the entrance without being obvious about it. She was not inside. I could see through the glass front of the station. One cashier, no customers. The woman I had driven 40 minutes in the rain was not inside that building. I checked the parking lot. I drove around the entire station once. She was gone. I have thought about that night many times since. I have tried to construct a reasonable explanation. Maybe she called someone before I pulled over and they came to that exit. Maybe she got a ride from someone else in the parking lot. Maybe I missed something obvious. But I keep coming back to the same thing. 43 miles of unbroken highway. No access points. No side roads. Nowhere she could have come from. If that story gave you chills, go ahead and leave a like. And if something like this has ever happened to you on a rainy drive, drop it in the comments. The storm that night was one of the worst I can remember. I grew up in the Midwest, and I am used to serious weather. Thunderstorms that rattle the windows, hail that dents cars, wind that bends trees sideways. I do not scare easily when it comes to storms. But this one was different. The kind of storm where the power is not a question of if, but when. And sure enough, around 9 in the evening, the lights went out. I was alone in my house. My husband was traveling for work. He would not be back until the following night. I had a flashlight, candles, and a fully charged phone. Prepared. I was not worried. I had just lit the second candle when someone knocked on the front door. My first thought was that it was my neighbor from 2 doors down, a man I will call Mr. Calloway, who is in his 60s and has lived on our street for years. He checks in sometimes when my husband is away. I did not think twice about it. I went to the door. I did not open it immediately. I looked through the peephole first, which was hard to see through in the dark with only candlelight behind me. I could make out a figure, a man, adult-sized, standing on my porch. I opened the door. The man standing there was not Mr. Calloway. He was younger, maybe late 30s, early 40s. He had dark hair plastered to his forehead from the rain. He was wearing a jacket and jeans, both soaked through. He looked flustered and out of breath. He said he was sorry to bother me. He said he had been in a minor accident just up the street. Another car had clipped him in the rain and he had skidded into the curb. Nobody was hurt, but his phone was dead and he needed to call someone. He asked if he could come inside for just a few minutes. He seemed genuinely distressed, wet, cold, visibly shaken. His hands were trembling. I told him to wait a moment, and I went to get my phone to hand to him through the door. When I came back, he had stepped up closer to the doorframe. He asked again if he could come inside, just to dry off for a minute while he made the call. Something made me hesitate. I am not sure what exactly. Maybe the way he had moved closer to the door while I was gone. Maybe the fact that I had not heard an accident. And I had been awake and the house was quiet enough that I think I would have heard something. Maybe just instinct. I told him I was sorry, but I was not comfortable letting anyone inside while my husband was not home. I held my phone out through the door and told him he was welcome to make his call from the porch. He looked at the phone for a moment. Then he looked at me and he said, "Is Dave not home tonight?" I felt the blood leave my face. My husband's name is not Dave. His name is Michael. Nobody on our street knows us well enough to know his name at all. We have only lived there for 2 years and we keep mostly to ourselves. There is no Dave at our address. There has never been a Dave at our address. I closed the door and locked it. I called 911 immediately and told them there was a man on my porch who was behaving strangely and who seemed to know things about my household that he should not know. When the police arrived, about 12 minutes later, the man was gone. They searched the street. They checked with neighbors. They found no evidence of a car accident anywhere on our block or the surrounding streets.
The officer I spoke to asked if the man had said anything else, and I told him everything, including the name Dave. He wrote it down without reacting much, which somehow made it worse. I called my husband that night and told him everything. He came home the next morning instead of waiting until the following evening. We never found out who the man was or how he knew that my husband would not be home that night. What I think about most is the moment I almost said yes, the moment I almost stepped back and waved him inside, and what would have happened if I had. If you thought that was unsettling, story 3 is worse. But first, hit the like.
My girlfriend and I had been driving for about 3 hours when we hit the crossing. It was late, close to midnight, and we were on a rural state road that we had taken because the GPS said it was faster than the highway at that hour. No traffic, no lights, just empty road and heavy rain. We had been mostly quiet for the last hour, both of us tired, ready to be home. The railway crossing came up without much warning. A small sign, the lights started flashing, and the barrier came down before we reached it. I stopped the car, and we waited. Normal enough. We'd both been through railway crossings hundreds of times. We sat there for maybe 2 minutes. No train. The lights kept flashing, the barrier stayed down, but no train appeared from either direction. The tracks stretched out in both directions into the dark and the rain, and there was nothing on them. My girlfriend made a comment about the crossing being broken, and I agreed. We'd seen it before, malfunctioning crossings that trigger for no reason. Not uncommon on rural lines that do not get maintained regularly. Then she grabbed my arm. I looked where she was looking. About 30 feet down the tracks to our right, standing directly on the rails, was a figure. A person. Standing completely still in the middle of the tracks in the pouring rain. Not walking, not moving, not reacting to the rain or the flashing crossing lights, just standing there, facing away from us, looking down the tracks in the direction a train would come from. My first thought was that someone was in danger, that this person was confused or hurt or in some kind of crisis and had wandered onto the tracks. I put the car in park and started to open the door. My girlfriend pulled me back. She said, "Do not get out of the car." I looked at the figure again. It had not moved. Not a single shift of weight, not a turn of the head, nothing. The rain was coming down hard enough that a person standing in it would be visibly reacting, flinching, pulling their jacket tighter, something. This figure was completely motionless. I honked the horn. Nothing. I honked again, longer this time. The figure did not react at all.
We sat there for another 3 or 4 minutes. The barrier stayed down, no train came. The figure stayed exactly where it was. Same position, same stillness, not responding to anything. And then the barrier lifted. Crossing lights stopped flashing. The mechanical arm went up smoothly, like a normal crossing cycle ending. And I looked at the spot on the tracks where the figure had been standing. Nothing there. I had not looked away. I had been watching that spot continuously. My girlfriend had been watching it too. Neither of us saw the figure move or walk away or do anything. One moment it was there, the barrier went up, and it was gone. We drove through the crossing without speaking. About a mile down the road, my girlfriend asked me if I had seen it. I
told her yes. She asked if I knew what it was. I told her no. We have looked up that crossing since. It is listed on railway records as an active crossing on a line that carries freight trains 3 to 4 times per week. No incidents on record, no accidents, no reports of trespassers, nothing unusual.
We drove that road again about 6 months later in daylight. We slowed down at the crossing and looked at the tracks. There was nothing on them. There was nothing near them. But I stopped the car and got out and walked over to the spot where the figure had been standing. And I stood there for a moment in the same place. And I looked down the tracks in the same direction it had been looking. I do not know what I expected to see. Whatever it was, I did not find it. 3 rainy nights, 3 moments where something went wrong in the dark and the wet and the isolation. Rain has a way of making you feel like you are the only person in the world. Sometimes, that feeling is wrong. Subscribe to Flicker of Fear Tales for new true horror stories every single week. Drop your story in the comments. I read every one. Stay safe and watch the road.